Hello, everyone, and welcome to Theory into Practice. I am Dan Scott, and today I have a real treat for you. I met this young lady back when I took the Emergency Management Professional Program Basic Academy. She was one of my instructors. We hit it off. We became friends. We've stayed in touch ever since. And ultimately, in her excelling and advancing in the field, I have gone along that road with her as a student of hers. She is a instructor at the Emergency Management Professionals Program Executive Academy currently. Carol McMahon is a lifelong practitioner of emergency management in her career. She has a huge amount of experience and credibility, but her love and passion for emergency management and helping the emergency manager become better is what drew me to her in all that she does. But to have her basically as an instructor of mine through each of the academies, which I've gone through in the Emergency Management Professionals Program. So I don't know if she knows that, Carol. You were actually an instructor of mine at each academy, and I really appreciate about that. But your newest role is in the Emergency Management Professionals Program Executive Academy, and you've kind of transitioned from the basic as an instructor to the advanced as an instructor, now the executive. And I'd like to just invite you to welcome those who are listening and watching. Introduce yourself and kind of give us a background of where you come from.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. It's a pleasure to see you again, and thank you for the very, very kind words. So you're right. I mean, I'm thinking about the things that you said, and we met back in the Basic Academy, and when I was just starting out teaching in the program, and here you are. You've done wonderful things, and I'm a pleasure to get to know you and to be your friend. My career in emergency management, this was my second act. I spent quite a few years in the advertising field and was given the opportunity to actually retire with a pension from that company. And back in 2005, gosh, it's been a while, I guess, I was working with the local health department running a grant program, and I was approached by the health director asking if I'd be interested in doing plans for emergency dispensing sites in our little 6 community area up here. I was intrigued. It was not something I had really thought about before, but just like everybody else in the world on 9/11, you wanted to have that moment of what can I do to help? And maybe, I looked at this as maybe an opportunity to actually do something. Little did I realize I was going to find my passion in emergency management. So that sort of evolved into all hazards planning for my community. And then I found EMI, Emergency Management Institute, and started taking my courses there. Ultimately, I was tapped on the shoulder by a dear friend of yours and mine, I'm sure, Todd Wheeler, the late Todd Wheeler, who was teaching in the Emergency Management Professionals Program in the Basic Academy and Advanced Academy. And he asked me if I'd be interested in teaching. And that started my path in emergency management at EMI. It's been an interesting career, working in a field that is primarily male-oriented and first responder-oriented, and I did not have any real experience in the first responder world, and being female in that world. So it's been an experience, and I'd like to think that I bring that experience with me when I teach in the academies. I taught in the Basic Academy where I met you first, and it's always exciting to see those new faces and the faces of people who have been in the field for a while, a short while maybe, to come in and learn new things and to experience those kinds of light bulb moments, if you will, of saying, I never thought of it that way. And making those relationships in those classes, Basic Academy, which I know you're still in touch with some of your fellow graduates from the Basic Academy. And then a little while later, the Advanced Academy, where you're stepping up into having a little bit more experience, but really needing to know where you're going to go next and how to fill those gaps. We're starting to look at having a lot more responsibility when we're teaching in the advanced academy. And unfortunately, maybe not a lot of ability to get things done. We have the responsibility, but not the authority. And we start talking with you all about how do you navigate that? How do you negotiate that? Where do you go with that? And you start making those really important contacts, face-to-face contacts with your peers from across the country, especially if you're fortunate enough to be able to get into the EMI cohorts. We also obviously have the local cohorts, which are again, very, very, very good. And for those people whose states don't allow them to travel as much, it gives them an opportunity to be able to deal with and learn from their peers within their regional areas. And then we go to Executive Academy. It's been in COVID. In COVID. We look at my tenure started just before COVID, and we were in the process of making some interesting changes in the program. For those of you all that are listening that were familiar or went through the Executive Academy in the past, there was a lot of lecturing, and what we found was what the feedback we were getting from our students is we wanted more interaction and more conversation and more facilitated discussion than just listening to somebody speak. It tended to be more, as I was told, it tended to be more like a conference where you sat in your chair and they rotated speakers in around you instead of you having to go to the different speakers. But there wasn't enough time left to be able to have those important in-depth conversations about how to apply the material that you've learned and how it affects you as an emergency manager or your community, and how are you going to use this information. And that's really what we've been trying to bring back to the Executive Academy, in making some little changes and adjustments and being able to move that forward. One of the things that I'm grateful of, and I know that you've talked to Dr. Kelly Garrett, excuse me, Dr. Kelly Garrett on this, is we all know FEMA is not exactly the most movable feast, if you will. It does not move quickly. However, we have been given enough leeway to be able to adjust on the fly if needed in some of these courses, within reason. Obviously, we have certain standards that we have to keep, but we've been very, very fortunate in having that kind of support to be able to change things as we need to make it a meaningful, good class where the students are really getting what they want out of it, and that's reflecting in our feedback. So that's pretty much where we are right now.
Well, that's amazing to hear. As someone, and I've told this, said this many times, is it's actually a program I would like to go through again to experience any updates and ultimately new experiences that would involve. But for me, a lot of that is the networking, the collaboration that you get from being in the classroom with other like-minded individuals, and you get to meet people. And as like you mentioned, I am still not only friends with, but very close to some of the people that I went to the basic academy with. And that's just one of the things that I do, though. I'm a networker. I'm a collector of people. I'm a collector of mentors, friends, and just ultimately resources. So I'm still very good friends with a number of people I went to the advanced and the executive academy with as well, and several of the classmates that we went through the series together. We were like, when are you going to apply? And we would apply at the same time so that we could go back to the experience together. And it was an amazing experience, and I recommend it to anyone, especially the in-classroom at EMI. As you mentioned, they do offer the basic and the advanced in the state level, and it is still a great offering. It absolutely is a great offering. I've actually hosted the basic academy. I was the first. I brought the very first basic academy to California. And yeah, so it was, because I truly value the program, but more than that, it's getting the program awareness out there, but it's also benefiting the professional who may not necessarily know all the ins and outs of emergency management, or given other duties assigned, or like myself, found myself doing the job without really any real training. And I
Mhm.
had to seek that training out. And the Basic Academy is really where I found my footing. And as you've seen, the last 8 years, we've gone a long ways from not knowing much to where we are now, trying to help push the
Absolutely. And just a personal anecdote. When I went through the Advanced Academy, which at that point was actually called the Leaders Academy. They changed the name after the first one. I don't know if it was something we did or whatever, but I recall when I was practicing in my community in Gloucester, Massachusetts, which is a community of about 30,000 people north of Boston. It's a seaside community. And I had taken the Basic Academy and the Advanced Academy, and I was sitting at my desk one day. I got a phone call from our major employer in our community, and that would be Gorton's. Gorton's of Gloucester. They make fish sticks, for those of you who remember going to school and eating those things. And they actually do. They make them in our town. And the safety and security officer from Gorton's had called me, and I was curious as to why. And he was in need of a tsunami plan. And I was like, tsunami plan? What are you talking about? And he said, well, apparently it was right after the tsunami that occurred in Japan that time, that took out the nuclear plant and everything. And they had just been bought out by that company, and they were requiring any facility that was near the ocean needed to have a tsunami plan. This is New England. Normally tsunamis are not a problem. So I told him I'd have to get back to him, and I went through my list of contacts and people that I had taken classes with, and I found an emergency manager out of Alaska who had a tsunami plan that I could at least take a look at to help craft the new tsunami plan for Gorton's. So the resources that are out there. I'll tell you something, Dan. I used to say that there hasn't been a plan that hasn't been written. Somebody's got it somewhere. But unfortunately, recently, I've had to rethink that, mainly because of the types of situations that as emergency managers we're finding ourselves in that we never imagined that we would ever have to take a look at. A lot of that had to do with some of the experiences that I had when I ran COVID response for our community. I did not have a plan for food insecurity, and not very many emergency managers had really dealt with that kind of a situation. But what we were looking at during the time when everything was shut down was we had families who couldn't go to the grocery store because they were COVID positive, who had small children at home, and they didn't want to go and infect anyone else. And now all of a sudden we have circumstances where people can't leave their homes or are not working and don't have the money. And now we've all of a sudden got a much bigger population of people with food insecurities than before. So when we think about having to deal with something on the scale of the supermarket shooting in New York, a horrible tragedy, but it shut down the ability of many of those people in that neighborhood to be able to actually get food. So now we're looking at having to make plans for situations, for homeless situations, for, again, COVID. Even though we had plans on the books, what we found out immediately was that a lot of those plans simply didn't work. They were great in theory, but in the reality is that they didn't work. So having the ability through these types of programs to be able to connect with people who, if they haven't gone through it, they at least know what you're going through and can offer you some kind of ideas or thoughts, or somebody to bounce ideas off of that that you may not have thought of before. When I set it up here in Gloucester, my first call was to my friends on the West Coast, because over in the West Coast, you had all started COVID much before we did, or got a handle on it much before we did, especially up in Washington State. I remember contacting a good friend of mine, Jason Bierman, up there, and I said, send me what you got. And he just kept funneling stuff to me, and it helped us get up to speed much quicker than what we would have been able to do without that kind of assistance. So the resources and the networking is invaluable in these kinds of programs. Where else are you going to get it? Where else are you going to be able to get that kind of 4-week in Advanced Academy, Executive Academy, in your face, see these people every couple of months, making those kind of connections. It's great. Our challenge, of course, with the Executive Academy is that we only accept 30 to 35 students a year. It is exclusive. It is competitive. It's a very competitive program. And I know that Dan, you're going to put the information as to where to get this information in the notes on this. We have already picked our fiscal year 23 cohort, so we'd be looking at fiscal year 24. However, I'm humbled by the quality of the people that are applying to and being accepted in this program. Very smart people, incredibly, but people, practitioners, PhDs, decision makers, and people who are doing the work without necessarily the ability to immediately make change, but that by going through this program, we can see that process for them to start that thinking and the strategic thinking process to be able to move forward and be able to affect change in their community of practice.
Yeah, and as someone who's not only gone through it, but also made those connections and used those connections, and been a source of resources for others, it's invaluable to be able to know somebody that you can reach out to ask for help. And that's one of the reasons why I love emergency management so much, is because it's one of the most collaborative professions and the most willing to share. Usually, there are you get the occasional one that is not always open to share, but for the most part, it's a very open, collaborative, and meaningful relationships that you build with other emergency managers or practitioners or professionals, which however they classify themselves. And it's an amazing experience, and I wholeheartedly recommend it. And I will be putting the information for those who are interested in the program and wants to apply for future dates. But when it comes to how competitive and exclusive the Executive Academy is, I think it's 100% needed, and it also brings up the level of intention and purpose for those who are applying. And from what I understand, that is the one program that will never leave EMI, will always be at EMI, which I think is amazing. But EMI is one of the places that I love to go. It's like, it's an area that even when I'm there for work or whatever, I feel at home. So, but Carol, it's always great to see you when I'm there. And I look forward to seeing you in the future as well. I just really appreciate you taking the time to come talk on this.
One little quick thing, one little nugget. One of the things that we're trialing this time in terms of the Executive Academy is wicked problem. And we are we started at our last class, and we're going to do it again in a couple of weeks with our final class. We will identify someone's actual real life wicked problem within the class, and give the entirety of the student body time to come up with solutions or a path forward for that particular problem, so that when people leave that week, they have a specific situation that they've looked at, that they've been able to take a look at and come back with some solutions. And even if it isn't your problem, that eventually it's going to be. So we're it worked out quite well last time. I'm looking forward to seeing how it works in round 2. But awesome. Thank you very much.
I'm looking forward to hearing how that goes. And as I said, it is a program that I would love to go through again. For all those who are listening right now, if you want more information on this, feel free to reach out. I will be putting the information into the show notes, into Carol's speaker profile as well. Ultimately, it's a great program. I've gone through all 3 courses, or 3 programs, and I 100% recommend it. Thank you for taking the time to listen. If you found value in this recording, please take the time to comment, share with others who could find value as well. My name is Dan Scott, and I will talk to you next time.
Thank you.